本日はエセックス大学のウェビナーにご参加いただきましてありがとうございます。で、今回のウェビナーなんですが、エセックス大学のTESOLコースと、あと言語学の修士課程のコースに関してのウェビナーというふうになっております。で、今回のセミナーなんですが、エセックス大学の概要、エセックス大学での学生生活を含めたご案内だったりとか、あと、今回は修士課程のエセックス大学の言語学修士課程コースから、トレイシー先生をお招きしまして、模擬講義を行っていただきます。で、最後には、質疑応答の時間も設けておりますので、何か、ご不明な点などございましたら、チャットでも、大丈夫ですので、ぜひ、この機会にご質問ください。では、早速ウェビナーを開始させていただきます。So, could you start the presentation?
Great, thank you. And so thank you for arranging the session today, and thank you to everybody who is joining. It will be, I'm happy to share this information with you. If this feels possibly quite formal and it's not meant to, if at any point you have any questions or you want to ask anything or you're not sure about anything, please ask. You can ask questions in the chat, you can raise your hands, I'm very happy to stop and repeat anything or clarify it when, and so do feel free to ask any questions. So hopefully I'm going to share my screen and just take you through some information that I hope is going to be interesting or helpful or useful to you. So my name is Tracey Costley, and I'm currently Head of Department for Language and Linguistics at the University of Essex. And I also work as a senior lecturer in the department as well. So I just wanted to be able to give you a bit of background about what we do, what it's like to be at Essex, the kinds of research that I'm interested in, and some of that of my colleagues, and then to look really specifically at the MA TESOL program and the kinds of things that, that you would be doing if you were a student on that program. And so that's the kind of the idea. So to provide you with a bit of information about the department, some of the kinds of work that we do, the MA TESOL course, and I thought this might be interesting or helpful or useful to give you, an idea of the kinds of skills that students develop when they're with us in their MA programs, but also being as part of the general university as well. So I hope this is interesting, and I apologize in advance if it is not. Okay, so a little bit about us then. So we're a large department. By Japan standards, I think we might be quite small, but for UK standards, we're quite a large department, and we have lots of really international staff. So this is a really good thing for us, we think. This means that people come to the department with very different ideas, different perspectives. We're multilingual, we're multinational, we're international. So in that sense, it's a really vibrant community. All of our, colleagues are active scholars in their field. So we are all teachers in the department, but we're all researchers in the department as well. So we're all involved in our own research projects, having grants, writing publications, undertaking studies. So as a student, any student in the department, you would hear about these projects, you would know about these projects, and we would talk to you about that. So what we talk about a lot at Essex is something called research-led teaching. So for example, the research that I do, I use in my lectures. And that's the same for my other colleagues as well. So the education is very up to date, very practical, and trying to match theory, so some of those really complicated ideas, with examples from real everyday life. So these are some of the nationalities of our staff members. So again, to give you a sense of what we do, what we look like. We don't currently have any Japanese members of staff, but we do have lots of colleagues who speak Japanese, who are interested in Japan, and who do work in Japanese contexts. We also have lots of colleagues who have worked in Japan as well. So again, hopefully there'll be lots of people who you would be able to be familiar with and share your experiences with as well. So we have, about 32 members of staff. And what's really exciting, and I apologize, this is a bit of a boast, and but it's a really good one. So we're very good. Our research and teaching is great, and particularly our research, and that's what this slide is saying. We have an exercise in the UK where they measure every university for how well researchers do. And for our department, we've done really well for this idea of impact. So we were first in the UK. So what this means is that the work that we do has implications for everyday life. So it's being used by people. So we're really proud of that, because it's really important that we do things, especially if we're working as teachers. So as teachers, we want to know theory, we want to know different ideas, different methods, but we also want to see that having an impact in the world on our students, on our learning, on policies. And so we're really proud that we have this really strong reputation around research impact. The quality of what we're doing is also rated really highly as well. So third in the UK for the scores that our research gets as well. And many of these results kind of place us, really as a sort of competitive department with other universities in the UK. So we're really excited about that. But it is a boast, so I apologize for that too. Our students, this will be of interest to you. So who would you be studying with if you came to Essex? So this is information that we had for 22-23. We had approximately 400 students in the department. So undergraduate, postgraduate, PhD, and sort of about half of those are undergraduate students. Some come from the UK, and then others from national and international backgrounds. So it's a mixture. So we have lots of students who have done their schooling in the UK and perhaps live in the UK, but also lots of students who are from a range of different other countries as well. So again, quite exciting in terms of, in terms of the kinds of students that you would be studying with. We do lots of different things in the department in terms of research and kind of uses in classrooms. So these are some of the things that some of my colleagues are involved in. We have different experiment spaces. So the bottom picture here is this EEG lab. And what we can do is to measure people's brain patterns when they hear different sounds. So if you say something to somebody, things happen in our brains. And this is a way of mapping that to sort of seeing, does it change? If we speak to somebody in French, what happens when they're, when we do that? If we speak to somebody in Spanish, what happens? What happens if we speak to someone in French and Spanish? What happens? So these technologies, these activities, looking at how we can apply those in real world context. We also have colleagues that use these for teaching purposes. So for example, if I want to know how students read, so my background is in English language teaching, and I'm interested in how students read things, how do they write things? So we can also measure how people interact with texts. So we've got something called an eye tracking lab, and this allows us, you can see here, this allows us to see, what do people do? Where do people's eyes move when they're reading things? And what can that tell us? We work with lots of babies as well. And happily, the baby is very comfortable, having a nice time. They're not in any pain. Nothing terrible is happening. Again, this is an opportunity to measure for language, like what's happening in their brain. So within the department, we do run different kinds of experiments. And as MA students, you would be you could make use of these facilities if this was something that was interesting to you. So again, there's got lots of quite exciting things that people are doing. So my research is very much in kind of the TESOL applied linguistics area, but across the department, we also cover things around sociolinguistics, more traditional linguistics, and psycholinguistics. And we all work very closely together. So these are areas of overlap and areas of similarity. So if you are interested in the MA TESOL, that's wonderful. is there's a very good chance as well that you would be able to take different modules in these other areas as well. So if you wanted to explore, find out new topics, find out different things, this, across the department, we have this area of expertise. And this is quite uncommon for departments to have this full range. So again, this is something that we're really excited about. So just out of, I thought I might share some information about myself to show you how I fit in the department and the kinds of things I do. So I started out as doing anthropology, and then I became an English language teacher. And most of my teaching, as you can see here, has been in and around Southeast Asia. So I've worked as a language teacher in Thailand, in Turkey, China, Taiwan and Hong Kong. And in these contexts, I taught mostly general English, some things around business English, maybe some English for specific purposes, or a lot of academic English. I also, and I'm sure this is something you might be familiar with as well, I taught lots of examinations, so things like IELTS. I know that you probably have your own experiences of things like that, IELTS or TOEIC or TOEFL, those kinds of exams. So I've been interested for many years in how classrooms work, like what do teachers do, what do students do, and how do we do that in different languages, in different contexts. So teachers like me, for example, from Britain with a British passport, what do I do and how do I do that? And what does that, what privileges do I have as a result of this position? And what sort of changes do we need to make in our kind of teaching environment? So I would be interested in these ideas of native, non-native. These are all really problematic kind of ideas for me, I think. We're all sort of teachers. We all come to language. We've all got expertise. And so most of my research is about being interested in these kinds of things. I'm also interested, this is a photograph. You might wonder what on earth this picture is. This is a photograph of my family playing a game on the beach. And so what I'm interested in is things like, how do people come together and use language to communicate, to talk to each other, to celebrate, to shout at one another, to argue, to make up. And so interested in these kinds of dynamics. So this is the kinds of work that I am currently doing. In terms of kind of specific, most recent things, I'm interested in these ideas of, as I said, English language learners and teachers. So how do we work together in classrooms, particularly in multilingual classrooms? So I'm interested in the idea of English and what this big language is. Is English helpful, or should we be talking about Englishes? So some of the ideas and issues you may already be familiar with. So these are the kinds of things that I do. I use words like ethnography and translanguaging. These may be words that you are familiar with. You may never have heard about them before. That's fine. But this is just the way, ethnography is the style of research that I do. So I'm interested in observing people, going into classes, seeing what people are doing. I do interviews, I do observations. I sometimes make use of questionnaires. So this is my kind of research style. And this idea of translanguaging. So this poster, you can see here, this idea of think English, speak English. As students, we've probably all been told these things. As teachers, we may have told our students these things as well. And so I'm interested in this, like, is this okay? Like, is it possible? And so what work in translanguaging is doing is saying, well, actually, we don't have, our brains aren't English here and Japanese here, and that they're separate. Actually, it's all one system. So this idea that you can think in one language is really quite difficult or a bit problematic. So part of what I'm interested in now is sort of, challenging these ideas. Why English only? Why this message to students? Can we think in English and other languages? Can we think multilingually? Can we speak multilingually? So for me, this is the kind of work that I'm doing now, because I think it's important for changing how we teach languages, particularly languages such as English. So my most recent research has taken me to, I did some recent research in Nepal, looking at multilingual classrooms there and how classroom practices could change as a result. We've done some similar work in Taiwan and also in different countries in Africa, so specifically Zambia, Tanzania, and Botswana. So I've been involved in lots of projects there where we're looking at how do we change what happens in classrooms. I'm also interested in ideas about methods and this notion of linguistic landscapes. And this may be something that's familiar to you, or it might be new. But the idea is, if you go, when you're walking outside in the street or in your university or in a coffee shop, what languages are in this landscape? What do we see? So I live in London. So London is very multilingual. So you see different signs in different languages. And, that's interesting. And it's interesting to me, what does that mean for teaching? What does that mean for learning? What does that mean for how people understand language? So these are kind of areas that I talk about a lot in my research and in my teaching. All of us in the department have similar profiles in the sense where we all have our own unique research interests and perspectives, and you can find all of that information on our kind of website and by looking at people's profiles. So this is sort of something we're all quite passionate about and enthusiastic about sharing with students. So hopefully that's interesting. So what does all of this mean then for things like MA TESOL at Essex? So we have we take an approach where we want our program to be really impactful for students, not only in terms of the kinds of theory that we would be learning. So we cover lots of kind of ideas about approaches and methods in English language teaching, but we also look at kind of current issues, current challenges, current kind of problems. So things are like translanguaging, things like multilingualism, things like computers and technology and AI. How is this all involved in teaching English to speakers of other languages? So for us, we're really proud of this particular master's degree because we think it's relevant anywhere in the world. We have lots of students come who are teachers already of English and they join the program. We also have lots of people who join the program with no experience of teaching English, and that's also fine. So we have different modules for everybody, so that if you've got experience, great. If you don't have experience, also great. So the idea is we're preparing people to be better, more adaptable, more informed, more confident English language teachers. So it's relevant, as I said here, for anyone that's interested in becoming a teacher or involved in education. So we have students on the program who are, as I said, are teachers. We also have students who are not interested in teaching. They don't want to be a teacher, but they want to perhaps be interested in understanding learning and education because they want to be involved in maybe opening a school. They want to be involved in writing materials. So that idea of teaching is quite broad. Sometimes it is face-to-face classroom, but sometimes it's more to do with the arrangement of education. We have people that have come who have worked for their government and are here to look at policies. So again, all of these different ranges are attracted to the program, which is, again, makes it very interesting for us, I think. In terms of what we cover, so these are some of the things that the MA TESOL course looks at. So how lessons are planned and designed. So some really practical skills and practical development. Like how do you, what options are there for teachers? What materials can we use and how can we evaluate those? How do we practice kind of classroom management? So there are kind of practical modules that you can do where you can get experience of teaching students and kind of arranging classrooms and practicing those skills. We want to sort of, help our students to understand, how learners and teachers, work in classrooms. So how do we react? How do we behave? So what's the sort of the psychology of teachers? And again, this is where our range in the department comes in because we have colleagues that work in this area of motivation, anxiety, teaching well-being. So again, kind of our research informing these kinds of sessions. We're also interested in how language learning can be tested and assessed. We know that often this is students' least favorite part of language learning or learning in general, and often something that is a real challenge for teachers. Like, how do you do assessment? What options are there? How can we help students in testing? And so we have a module on specifically on this as well. So looking at these kinds of ideas and concepts. We are also interested in, again, so this is where perhaps our course sort of branches out from being quite practical to also being quite theoretical as well. So we're interested in how do we learn? Like, how do we acquire language? So this then might take us into things that are more to do with second language acquisition, so language learning theory. And so we can then sort of see, well, if we know this in theory, then what does that mean for practice? So taking these kinds of, more theoretical discussions and then thinking, well, okay, how can we teach this? The 4 skills of, reading, writing, listening, and speaking, how does that connect to things like second language acquisition? What do we need to do as teachers? So moving always between this theory and practice. And we think that's a good balance, really. We need to know the theory, but we need to know what that looks like in practice. So we can challenge the theory, maybe, so that we can change the theory. And I think this is something that we really encourage from all of our students, is that, to bring your own ideas, to see what this looks like in the range of contexts that we work in, and to challenge things, to create new ideas, to say, hang on a minute, this theory is interesting, but this one is better, or this one is better because it helps me to do these things. So lots of ideas about critical thinking, critical applications. And again, these are the kinds of things that we encourage everybody to do. So as I mentioned, we've got this kind of sense of the course being informed a lot by applied linguistics as well. And again, this is what this means. So how do we acquire language? How do we acquire language at different stages? So we have lots of students on the program who are interested in teaching children. We have lots of students who are interested in not teaching children. They want to teach adults. And how is that different? So this idea of what, learning across the lifespan, if we're looking at primary school, secondary school, high school, working conditions, what do we need to do as teachers to change that? We also look at this idea of how multilingualism develops and how languages are used and experienced. So important in terms of, preparing us to be teachers, but also important in preparing us for those of you who are interested in research to kind of go on to do that as well. And again, we have lots of students who come onto the course to do very much kind of practical based teaching and go on to do teaching when they finish. But we also have students who are interested in that idea of teaching, but also want to go on to do research. So a number of our MA TESOL students are also now current PhD students. So a lot of our students, probably sort of 60% will go into teaching in some way, shape or form, and a good 40% will stay on to do their PhDs. Other modules that you might be doing as part of so all of this course has some core courses that we think, okay, everyone has to do this, but there's also opportunities for options as well. So things around research methods, like how do you do things with research, what tools? So things about qualitative design, quantitative design. So again, words that you may be familiar with or concepts that might be new. How do we learn different ideas of grammar, individual differences? So how does this shape what we're doing? Another module here is the psychology of language learning and teaching. So what do we need to know about ourselves as teachers and students? And how does this idea of the psychology of language learning help us? So these are some examples of modules that we have that you could choose from. And again, other ones as well. So language testing and assessment, for example, young learners, EAP, education management. So across the different years, these different modules become options. We have 2 starting entries for this degree program. You can start in October, as in our general regular cycle, so the autumn start, but we also have a January start as well. So again, you would join the program in the same way, do the same courses, but it's just a second entry point. In terms of assessment, the kinds of things you will be doing in the modules, we use different assessment types. So there might be essays, there might be quizzes, there might be presentations. So some modules use a combination of these things. And we give lots of help and feedback and support on what this looks like and how to do those. You're also asked to do like a longer project, what's called the dissertation. And lots of people find this really scary to begin with and think, oh no, this is going to be awful. But in the end, I think most people really, really enjoy doing their dissertation. It's one of the things that people say at the end was an opportunity for them to do their own independent project. And people do this on a range of different topics. So I've had students working in Japan before who have looked at Japanese English language teaching materials and have kind of reviewed those, revised those, have made their own materials. I've also had colleagues who've been working in Japan who do classroom observations, trying to understand what do teachers do. I've had students who work in classrooms in the UK, and they are kind of, again, sort of looking at what teachers are doing, how students are learning. We have students who are looking at policy. We have students who are looking at sort of testing different things. So how to help students become more fluent in English or in a language learning classrooms. So there's a whole range of different topics that people work on, and you'll be invited to select your own topic and then work with a supervisor who will guide you through this piece of work. So it's a big piece of work, but it's a piece of work that hopefully you can then use in your next steps and kind of future directions as well. So we have had lots of students who have done their dissertation and then have shown that to their prospective employers and that has helped them to get jobs as well. So it's an interesting, excuse me, it's an interesting piece of work in that you have the option to focus on something that's really theoretical and also practical as well, something that's you haven't had a chance to look at yet. So some students use the dissertation as an opportunity to look at a topic that's new to them, that's a new challenge, that's kind of exciting. So I've had students before looking at language in things like films and in movies, and how can we use this for teaching, or just interested in language in general in kind of literature. So these would be kind of, you could take your dissertation in an area that's new, or as I said, you can use it to kind of link into what you want to go on to next, and or job applications. So again, kind of an interesting range of things. We know that some people love essays. We know that some people hate essays. We know that some people like quizzes. Some people hate quizzes. And this is why we have this range. So to try and make sure that everyone has an opportunity of doing something that they feel good at and they feel confident with, but also to learn to develop these skills as well. So what other things does the MA help you to do or help you to develop? So we do quite a lot of the work that you'd be doing will be around data analysis. So taking ideas, analyzing them, kind of coming up with theories, whether that's your own data or data that we would be looking at in class. You would then also develop these kinds of things around problem solving, critical thinking. Because in different modules, we ask you to think quite specifically about things. And also in things like your dissertation, you'll be required to do lots of planning, to do kind of, prepare this project. We think also as well our students are very detailed, oriented in their thinking afterwards. So that ability to really focus in. And so if we are confident, I think that our students, yes, we know that they can be very good teachers. Yes, we know that they can be very good kind of communicators. But we also think that they're very good at doing these things as well. So we also have lots of students who will do their master's program and then not want to go into teaching. So these skills, again, are the things that, people can use to then get, to happily get jobs afterwards too. We know that our students do very well in terms of being able to communicate, both in writing and in spoken, because, you will be doing lots of presentations. There's lots of kind of editing, whether that's writing, whether that's speaking. And because of the nature of our subject, so TESOL is a very intercultural subject. We're often looking at teaching in international context. We're often looking at teaching in kind of, multilingual context, or international students, or students who want to go and work internationally. So in that sense, again, the subject, but also studying at Essex, as I said before, we're very international and multicultural in that sense. So we do, our students develop intercultural communication skills as well. So again, I think, really important skill sets that you can use, beyond your studies. And of course, being able to, report those things and discuss those are also really important. So, what does this, look like in detail? I will make these slides available to you as well. So please don't worry. If you're making notes, you can, I will make these available to you. But yeah, we also think these ideas about problem solving, cross-cultural skills, what does that look like again in kind of exact details? So, how do we adapt to different cultural settings? So we know that students arriving in Colchester, there's adapting to those, this new environment is part of that skill set as well. But also, if we think about MA TESOL specifically, how do we take materials and adapt those to different students, to different age groups, to different learners' needs? So again, quite a lot of the things that we would be doing in classes would really practice these skills. And, these are quite unique skills, I think, and really important in terms of, your onward trajectories and future goals. So yeah, we're really confident that the students who kind of work on our program, who graduate from our program, are really good at these things and others as well. Another kind of, there's other things that often get left behind is this notion of problem solving. So whether that's problem solving in your day-to-day life or in assignments, in essays, how you have to kind of think about using different words, different strategies, different kind of approaches. So whether this is in quizzes, whether that's in writing. So again, hopefully it would be very clear to you at the end of your master's degree, the subject knowledge that you have, as well as these, excellent skill sets as well. Some very last, I think, couple of tips really, and then I'm very happy to have some questions or kind of go back over any information that you think would be helpful for me to clarify. But things that we know that students do that make them successful. So we a lot of the MA courses across the UK, and specifically our own courses as well, they do require a lot of reading and sort of independent work. By independent work, I mean that your teachers will give you tasks, they'll give you things to work on, and you'll be supported in that. But the idea is that if you're not in class, then hopefully you're kind of, doing some individual study. That might be in the library, that might be in working groups with your colleagues. But this idea of, doing the reading. So each module will have a reading list, and that's available in the library, and you'll have all of these resources. And so each module will kind of give you specified reading to do. This isn't rocket science. The students who do the reading and prepare well are always the students who do excellently in the course. So, being ready to do the reading, to do the preparation. And part of that also involves, being confident to think about topics and what they mean for you. So one of the key things about being a master's student, and particularly sort of a master's student in the UK context, I think, is this idea of kind of independent critical thinking. So trying to think about how you can apply your own understanding and your own interests to these questions. And we really encourage that. We want students to talk in class. We want students to share their ideas. Everyone is coming with their unique experiences. And this is really important, especially in MA TESOL. So, we encourage you to share your ideas and to discuss things in class. So that idea of being prepared, but also being ready to learn. So, committing time to your studies, committing to doing the reading, we have lots of opportunities for students to meet with colleagues. So you have a personal tutor who you can see throughout the year, who will be able to help you with kind of any difficulties you're having, or someone that you want to go and talk to, someone to kind of celebrate with if you've done very well in your assessment, someone to kind of help guide you if you're looking for information. You can always talk to your lecturers and your classmates. You can talk to me, you can talk to all colleagues in the department. And again, these opportunities. So some people, might come to the university and not really do very much. They go to class but again, those students that take that opportunity, like speak to your lecturers, engage with your colleagues, be involved, like these are really, really good skills, I think, in terms of being really successful. Hopefully also it makes it more enjoyable. We're a nice department, we're very friendly. The university itself is very friendly. So again, this opportunity to really explore and take advantage of these additional resources, I think, are really important. Something that really is a feature of our courses, again, is reading and writing. So as I said, there's a lot of independent work. You will be guided through it. You will be given support, lots of feedback. You can ask lots of questions, but ultimately, you're going to be doing a lot of work sort of independently. So, spending time carefully reading, carefully writing, and developing those skills. Because, no one is arriving at the university being able to be brilliant at everything. We're all learning to do that. So again, being part of that, commitment to doing those things, again, is always, it's always the students who commit to these things who do the best. And by the best, I mean in terms of grade outcomes, in terms of job opportunities, and in terms of just enjoying themselves, I think. There are lots of opportunities for taking up, help with writing or feedback. So yeah, making sure that you're kind of actively engaging with those things. And also, importantly as well, I think having fun. The campus is beautiful. We've got lots of green space. There's lots of clubs. There's lots of societies. There's lots of really, really important non-academic parts of your degree that we would really, really encourage you to be part of. So if you're interested in sports, there's a very big sports center. There's clubs and societies for all kinds of different things. So if you're interested in chess, for example, there's a chess club. If you're interested in things to do with fashion or music, there's these kinds of clubs as well. There's a Japanese society. There are kind of a teaching society. There's all different kinds of things. So again, that part of your life at Essex is also really, really important. So finding a balance and working on that is, I think, is the best advice I can give you, really, is to, give yourself an opportunity to be successful and to enjoy that. I appreciate that quite a lot of information, so I apologize. I'm very happy if you have any questions, if anyone would like to ask any questions, or if you'd like me to clarify anything or, confirm anything. I can stop sharing my screen for the moment, so do feel free to ask if there's anything you'd like to know.
皆様、何かご質問等ございますか？質問などございましたら、チャットの方でも大丈夫です。Tracey, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please do.
So I just wonder what the nationality ratio is like in the course. Do you have a good mixture of nationalities?
Absolutely, that's a great question. So this year we have, I think we have something like, I think we've got the final numbers coming in because we've got a new January start as well. But I think this year we've got 60 students, I think 65 to 70 students on the MA TESOL program. And we have some students from the UK. We have some students from the US and Canada. And then we have students from France, Spain, Italy, so different parts of Europe. We have students from Africa. We have students from Nigeria, from Ghana, we have a student from Morocco. We have students from Saudi Arabia. We have students from Japan, yay. Lots of students from Hong Kong and China, and also from South America. So we have students from Chile, from Colombia. So there's no one large group of students. We really are, it really is a mixture, which for me is really brilliant and fascinating and really nice. There's always, I think, enough students from people's home countries. So for example, say, for example, I know that we have students this year who are relatively new from Nigeria. So there are 2 or 3 students in the class from Nigeria. So there's enough for people to feel like, oh, this is nice, kind of friendly and kind of familiar, but also not so much that you think, oh, this is the same, like, why am I here? You know, so there's a very nice mix. And I think that's the same across the university. If you walk around the campus, there's all kinds of different nationalities and backgrounds. Yeah, and no one dominant group, I think.
Thank you. That's good to hear. And it's still acceptable if they don't have any backgrounds as a teacher, right?
Yes, absolutely. So we have students on the program who have a background in English, who have a background in teaching, who have a background in all kinds of things to do with English, to do with TESOL. We equally have students who have no background in that, may have studied science, may have studied engineering, and are interested in teaching it. And there's no reason why the students with a non-English or TESOL background can't do very well. So some of our most excellent students are students who come new to the subject. So it's not a, it's not a prerequisite. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. We have lots of students as well, some who are, who have come straight through school. So they've come from high school to university to masters. We have some students as well who've come from, through school, have worked for a few years and then coming back. We have some students who do that, have worked for many years and come back. So the age range in the class is also often interesting. So we have students, who are, in their sort of 20s, 30s, but we also have had students who are in their 50s, in their 60s, in their 40s. So again, it's quite interesting and a range of different life experiences that people can share as well.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
はい、ありがとうございます。なので、コースには、かなり、多くの国籍の方が、所属していて、で、特に英語の先生として、ご勤務された経験がないっていう方も、一緒に学ばれているので、年齢も、かなりバラバラっていうことでしたね。何か、ご質問などないようですかね。大丈夫ですか？ Okay. It seems there's no question at the moment.
Perfect, no problem. So I can pass over. Chloe, I'm happy to, should I pass over to you now? Are you happy to answer any other questions? Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, I'm more than
Brilliant.
happy.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much, Tracey.
Thank you so much. Nice to see everybody. And I am going to class now. I'm going to teach things about research proposal writing. So I should be enjoying that. Yes, if you have any questions, then please contact us. We're very happy to teach you. And yeah, it's been. Thank you for sharing your time with me today.
Thank you for your time. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Just briefly introduce myself. My name is Chloe. I'm from the regional office, and we taking care of Japanese students who are interested to come to study at Essex. So if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. I am going to just drop our email address at the chat box. And please feel free to keep in touch. And yeah, that'll be all from me. Is there any other questions that you would like to ask us?
今、クロエさんの方からメールアドレスをチャットの方に、 共有していただいたので、もし何かこの後質問等ございましたら、こちらのメールアドレスの方にご連絡くださいということで、じゃあ何か皆さんご質問ございますか？大丈夫そうですかね。I think there is no question at this point.
Okay, that's fine. Since I have dropped my email address at the chat box, so if you do have any questions, please feel free to drop us an email. Thank you very much. Thank you, Rudy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
では、そうですね。ここで、ウェビナーは一旦終了というふうにさせていただきますので、もし、何かご不明な点などございましたら、SIUQ の方にも、クロエさんのメールアドレスの方にも、ご質問いただければと思います。で、一旦こちらで、閉じさせていただくので、ご退出いただいて大丈夫です。何か、質問等ございましたら、残って質問していただいても大丈夫です。では皆様ありがとうございました。